Do you understand what she's saying?
I hear it. It's gibberish. I can't understand it.
And I can.
Disclosure Day feels like the kind of movie that grabs you before it ever explains itself. And honestly, that may be exactly the point. The moment I started looking at what Steven Spielberg is bringing back to theaters this summer, I got the feeling that this is not just another alien movie. It feels bigger, stranger, and far more personal. And when a filmmaker like Spielberg returns to the very kind of mystery that helped shape his imagination in the first place, I pay attention long before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, or War of the Worlds. Spielberg was already locked in on the unknown, ever since that unforgettable night in the 1950s, when his father woke him up in New Jersey and took him down a quiet rural road to watch an astonishing meteor shower streak across the sky. The future director became fascinated by outer space and the unanswered questions living above us. That early moment did not just leave an impression on him, it helped define an obsession. Now, after 2 decades away from alien-centered science fiction, Spielberg is stepping back into that territory with Disclosure Day, which is set to hit theaters and IMAX on June 12, 2026. And the wild part is this: even after the trailers, the central story still feels deliberately hard to pin down. Is this a real UFO event? Is it a government cover-up? Is it a deception? Is it hidden foreign technology dressed up to look extraterrestrial? Or is Spielberg building something even more unsettling, where reality itself cannot be trusted? In the new extended documentary tied to the film, Spielberg admits that as a child, he developed a real curiosity about the night sky and what might be happening out there. More than that, he says he did not just believe life beyond Earth was possible. He felt certain of it. That one detail says a lot to me. Because Disclosure Day already feels less like a standard studio spectacle and more like a filmmaker revisiting a question that has been haunting him for most of his life. And that is why this movie has become so intriguing. It is not just the return of Spielberg to sci-fi. It is the return of Spielberg to one of his oldest fascinations. When someone with that level of cinematic control chooses to revisit an idea that personal, I immediately start wondering what he is really trying to say underneath the surface. Spielberg has spent a career mastering wonder, fear, and emotional misdirection. So if Disclosure Day looks confusing right now, I do not think that is an accident. I think we are being led exactly where he wants us. Universal's official teaser text only adds to the tension. It asks a chilling question: if you discovered that we are not alone, and someone could prove it to you, would that terrify you? Then it follows that with the line that this summer, the truth belongs to 7 billion people, because Disclosure Day is coming. That wording is vague on purpose, but it is also effective. It suggests revelation on a global scale, the kind of event that no government, no institution, and no ordinary person could contain once it begins. The cast is another reason this project instantly stands out. Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor, and Colin Firth lead the film, with Coleman Domingo and Eve Hewson also joining in still undisclosed roles. Blunt especially feels like a perfect fit for this kind of story. She has already become deeply associated with tense, high-concept science fiction through films like Edge of Tomorrow and the A Quiet Place movies. So far, 2 trailers have been released. The first arrived on December 16, 2025, and the second aired during Super Bowl 60 on February 8, 2026, but instead of clearly laying out the plot, both previews seem designed to keep viewers unstable. The first footage hinted at some kind of global declaration that aliens were either arriving soon or possibly already here, but nothing in it played like a normal invasion setup. The tone was too eerie, too dreamlike, too carefully fragmented. At first glance, it would be easy to label Disclosure Day as an old-school alien invasion story. But the more I look at what has been shown, the more I suspect Spielberg is hiding something far more layered. The imagery is bizarre in a way that feels intentional. We see unsettling deer behaving with eerie awareness. We see mysterious crop circles. We get flashes of strange red birds, dilated pupils, violent car chase collisions, and what appears to be some kind of body switching or identity distortion. Emily Blunt plays a Kansas City meteorologist who suddenly begins making incoherent sounds during a live broadcast. Josh O'Connor seems desperate to reveal some larger truth to the world. Colin Firth appears strapped into a virtual reality device, wires and mouthpiece included, as if perception itself has become part of the threat. That is where my instincts really kick in. Everything looks hostile, but not in a straightforward way. It does not feel like the movie is only asking whether aliens are coming. It feels like it is also asking whether humanity can even process the truth if it arrives in a form we do not understand. Spielberg may be using the language of UFO panic to tell a story about information, fear, mass belief, psychological collapse, or even manipulated reality. The Super Bowl preview leaned even harder into that dread. It added more haunting action beats, more crop circle imagery, and one especially striking shot of what looks like a gigantic flying saucer emerging from a burning, turbulent cloud. Whatever the final explanation turns out to be, the trailer lands on one message that is impossible to ignore: there will be no day like tomorrow. It is ominous, simple, and loaded with scale. It tells me this is not just about contact, it is about consequence. Behind the camera, Spielberg is directing from his own original story, which only makes the project even more personal. The screenplay comes from David Koepp, the Oscar-nominated writer who previously collaborated with Spielberg on Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The production team is stacked with familiar Spielberg talent too. Disclosure Day is being produced by Spielberg and five-time Academy Award nominee Christy McCosco-Krieger for Amblin Entertainment, with Adam Sandler and Chris Brigham serving as executive producers. Janusz Kaminski, Spielberg's longtime Oscar-winning cinematographer, is also on board, which means the visual language of this movie is likely going to carry that signature mix of all shadow and emotional scale. And then there is John Williams. Just seeing his name attached tells me the film is aiming for something grand, haunting, and unforgettable. So where does all of this leave me? Honestly, in the best place possible, curious. Disclosure Day still has not shown its full hand, and that may be exactly why anticipation keeps growing. The trailers are strange, the premise is slippery, the cast is elite, and Spielberg is returning to a corner of science fiction that helped define some of the most iconic moments of his career. If this movie delivers on even half of what it is hinting at, we may be looking at one of the most talked about theatrical events of the summer. And if Spielberg is hiding a major narrative twist behind all this alien imagery, then Disclosure Day could land even harder than anyone expects. Either way, this is one I am watching very closely. Because when Spielberg starts looking back at the stars, Hollywood usually has to look up with him. That is everything I have for now. But I have a feeling Disclosure Day is only going to get weirder from here. Stay sharp, stay curious, and I will see you in the next one.